Hello. So, welcome back. It's me, Mr. LSA's drama teacher, that guy. Last time we did what makes a scene great. This time we're going over, oh, you can't even see that, or maybe you can, I don't know. What makes a scene bad? It's a lot more vague than what makes a scene great because there's always a clear thing or clear signs of what makes something good, right? There's not always clear signs of what makes something bad. It's always hard to explain. So we're just gonna go based kind of loosely on the opposites of what make a scene great. So a great scene, remember, has reason, conviction, and emotion. So it's technically needless to say that a bad scene would have no reason and no conviction and no emotion. But a bad scene could also have too much reason and too much conviction and too much emotion, right? So let me just give it to you clear what makes a scene bad. A bad scene probably has more than three things. It could be any combination of these four or five things, right? One being overly emotional acting, right? There are some scenes that don't require the waterworks, if you want to call it that. You ever watch a movie and it's like, you can tell that they're acting because they're trying really hard and it takes away from the scene. Like you can barely focus on what's happening because it's over dramatic. That's a bad scene. Second thing that would make a scene bad, a scene that's happening for no reason or an out of context scene. A scene that, you know, probably could have been erased from the movie, but it's happening solely because either the person who edited the movie or directed the movie wanted it in there, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. A good example of a scene like that, where it's like in the movie and there's no real reason, and it's like you're supposed to just accept that this is happening. Happens a lot in kids movies where like things happen and it's like, all right, like in Cars. Here's a really good example. No. Cars is a really well put together movie. Never mind. Well, that's the second reason. I can't really think of an example. The third thing that makes a scene really bad, like not really bad, but the third thing that would make a scene bad, right, is bad acting. Everyone can point out bad acting. You just know it when you see it. Like, no, don't jump. Bad acting makes it seem bad. Where are they jumping from? What's going on? No one cares because the acting is really bad. No, I mean, granted, I just did the thing because I was able to act poorly on purpose. Fourth thing makes a scene bad, right? Usually, and this is something that a lot of people won't think about, but the setting and the time period of when a scene is taking place has a lot to do with it, right? So if you're shooting a futuristic movie, right, then that's important. Don't, like, here's something, if you go back and watch a lot of movies, there are things that have to be edited out, right? So I once, here's a good example. In the original Matrix, right, for parts of the movie, Keanu Reeves is wearing a watch. You wouldn't know that because it's one of those things that you wouldn't be paying attention to. But how can you have a watch in a post-apocalyptic Earth? Doesn't make any sense, right? Does that make any scenes in the Matrix bad? No, that's a really minor example. But things like that happen in movies all the time. I'm gonna go with those four reasons. And those four reasons I'm gonna repeat to you, rapid fire, back to back, so you know that I know what I'm talking about. Overly emotional acting, it'll be bad direction, out of context scenes. You have scenes that the setting is off, something's not right. Like even though it's happening, it doesn't make sense. Oh, in unconvincing scenes. I feel like I'm not saying the same stuff. But that's what I mean. Bad scenes, what makes something bad is very vague, right? I could love a scene that you dislike just because of some of the reasons that I listed. There are some movies where it's purposely bad, and that's what makes it good. Film is a very complicated thing. I'm going to do my best to find an example of a bad scene and voice over that. And that's going to be happening now.
Alright guys, we're here today discussing Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, specifically the Martha scene. If you haven't guessed yet by the title Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, this movie is about Batman and Superman fighting. So basically, the whole premise of this movie is Batman thinks that Superman is an immediate potential threat to the Earth, although he's always been a superhero, which is a common thing for Batman to do, right? Batman's a very simple person. He's very critical. Batman as a character has always considered Superman to be a threat. That makes sense, right? So, but in this scene in particular, the Martha scene, what's happening is Batman has seemingly won the fight. He's about to win with a kryptonite spear to Superman's heart, right? And if you don't know, Superman's one weakness is kryptonite. It makes him basically like regular. So right before he's about to lose, right before Batman is about to finish Superman, Superman says, "You're gonna let them get to Martha," or something. I'm paraphrasing, or something along those lines. And then Batman stops. His lip quivers a little bit, and he's like, "Why did you say that name?" And then, there's this whole flashback of the scene where Batman loses his parents. And then, it comes back to Batman versus Superman. Batman says shouting, "Why did you say that name?" And then Lois Lane's there, and she's like, because that's his mother's name. And all of Batman's emotional confusion, he takes the kryptonite spear and throws it to the side. This scene is bad because none of the actions hold emotional weight. If this is the Batman that we know, Batman is a very goal-oriented, mission-oriented superhero. He does what needs to be done. That is what he does, right? And if he really felt like Superman was the potential threat that he is, technically, then you continue the mission. The mentioning of his parents' name, right, of Martha, wouldn't have deterred him, wouldn't have shook him up so bad. I see what they're going for. What they're trying to say is that both Superman and Batman grew up here on Earth. They had parents, this, that, and the third, but it's not carried over. It's not displayed the right way because there's no reason for Batman to react the way that he reacted if he's here to carry out the mission. It's a bad scene overall. All right, so now we're going to cut back to me again.
Tune in next week. Next week, we'll be covering a whole new topic. It'll probably be something dramatic. See what I did there? This is the drama class. Smooth. All right, see you guys next week, next Tuesday.